relationship with religion. Then the second point was in regards to the intentions. And we mentioned the importance of the intention and so on. Regarding intention, i.e., 4 intentions that a person should make when seeking knowledge, which is to remove ignorance from himself, to remove ignorance from others, to revive this knowledge, and to act upon this knowledge. And then we took the third chapter, which talked about to gather all one's zeal upon knowledge, i.e., to focus just on seeking knowledge. And we mentioned 3 ways, the Sheikh mentioned 3 ways, which is to have tunnel vision, to focus on that which you need and that which is beneficial for you. And then to start and seek the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in regards to that, and then not to deter from that path, and rather to finish what you have started. And then in the end, we of that chapter also give an extra fa'idah of lines of poetry, which mentioned 5 other ways in how a person can keep his motivation high. If he ever feels that his motivation is becoming less and that he's starting to burn out, then these are 5 different ways in how a person could keep that motivation going. Now, alhamdulillah, we will start from chapter number principle number 4, inshallah, which is page 26. I'll have to use this. The 4th chapter, or the 4th principle that the Shaykh mentions, is to exert your zeal. And the 3rd chapter talked about having that motivation and focus in that which is beneficial. So the 4th is exerting that zeal, and the motivation that you have attained from the 3rd principle, you have to direct it somewhere. So he says, exert your zeal to the knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah. So when it comes to seeking knowledge, then what do we focus on? We focus on the Quran and the Sunnah, because that is the source of the religion. The Prophet ﷺ said, I have left for you 2 things. You will never go astray as long as you cling on to both of them, Kitabullah wa Sunnati, the book of Allah and my Sunnah. So these, the sources of the religion, the primary source of the religion are these 2, the Quran and Sunnah. And even if one wants to argue that we have qiyas and we have ijma' consensus, as well as a proof, no problem. But those 2 are both based upon the Quran and Sunnah also. And when the ulama have consensus and ijma' on an issue, where have they got that opinion from? The Quran and Sunnah. And if you do qiyas, what's the qiyas done upon? The Quran and Sunnah. Okay? And that's one of the conditions of qiyas. So you can't do qiyas upon something other, upon a secondary thing. You have to go back to the primary source, which is the Quran and Sunnah. However, when we say Quran and Sunnah, it's not restricted to, when you say Quran, tafsir, and Sunnah, just hadith. It's not restricted to just that. That is because the sciences in the religion are of 2 types. The sciences in the religion are 2 types. We have ulum al-ghaya and ulum al-ala. Ulum al-ghaya are those sciences which are the objectives. Those sciences which are the objectives. And ulum al-ala, with the hamza, or with an alif with a mad, ulum al-ala are those sciences which are tools or instruments. So ulum al-ghaya, those sciences which are objectives, and ulum al-ghayah, those sciences, ulum al-ala, those sciences which are the tools. What does this mean? Ulum al-ghayah are those sciences which are the objective that you want to learn, such as aqidah, fiqh, tafsir, and so on. These are the things that you need to know. Okay, these are the things that you want to learn. But ulum al-ala are those sciences which help you, and they're the tools and the instruments which allow you to understand the ulum al-ghayah. And for example, an example of ulum al-ala, those which are the tools, is the Arabic language. Without the Arabic language, you can't fully understand the aqidah, or fiqh, or tafsir, or whatever science it may be. Likewise, we have the science of usul al-fiqh. Usul al-fiqh, we explained last time. Without it, you can't truly understand fiqh. It's not as simple as saying this is an ayah and this is a proof. There's a way, there's a whole structure, there's a mechanism, there's conditions, you have to look at a number of things. So for you to understand usul al-fiqh is vital for a person to be able to deduce rulings from the Quran and Sunnah. Like usul al-tafsir, for a person, he's not able to do tafsir if he doesn't know usul al-tafsir. Usul al-tafsir teaches you how to do tafsir. So all of these other sciences which help you understand the objectives, they're known as ulum al-ala. In hadith, we have mustalah al-hadith. Right? Mustalah al-hadith teaches you what is an authentic hadith, what are the conditions, what's a hasan hadith, what's a weak hadith, and the different types of weak hadith, and so on. And if you don't know mustalah al-hadith, then you won't be able to properly understand hadith and understand those terminologies. So it is important for us when we learn and we say we want to study the Quran and Sunnah, is that we understand when we study the science of the religion, all of them, and those which are the objectives, and those which will help us understand the objectives. Yeah, and I will read what the Sheikh he says. He says, "Indeed, all beneficial knowledge, its return point is the speech of Allah and the speech of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And all what is beneficial knowledge is what is built upon the Quran and Sunnah. And the rest of the types of knowledge are either a service to those two, so take from it in accordance to that which will actualize that service, or it's foreign to those two, so it doesn't harm being ignorant of it." And what he's saying in here, he's saying knowledge of three types: either the Quran and Sunnah itself, that which helps the Quran and Sunnah, or that's got nothing to do with the Quran and Sunnah. The first, the Quran, ulum al-ghayah, that's what he's basically referring to, ulum al-ghayah. Ulum al-ghayah, those which are the objectives. Those which help the Quran and Sunnah, ulum al-ala, right? Those which are the tools. And that which it's got nothing to do with the Quran and Sunnah, all the other sciences, maths, English, science, all of them, that's the third, okay? Obviously there's parts of it which are beneficial and parts of it which every person should know, but generally, these are things which a person doesn't need to specialize in or anything like that. So what does he say? He says, ulum al-ghaya is the objective, you have to learn those. Ulum al-ala, those which help you learn the objectives, then learn from it what you need, which will allow you to understand. And you don't have to become necessarily, go into this so much. You just need to learn that much, which allows you to understand ulum al-ghaya. And then the third in reality is not the Islamic sciences. That's why we said they're just two. But the Shaykh made it into three, just to complete the qismah. And then he says, and how beautiful is the speech of Iyad in his book Qadi Iyad in his book Al-Ilma' العلم في أصلين لا يعدوهما إلا المضل عن الطريق اللاحب علم الكتاب وعلم الآثار التي قد أسندت عن تابع عن صاحبه. Knowledge is in two foundations and isn't surpassed except by the one who is astray from the straight path. Knowledge of the book and narrations that have been relayed in a chain from tabi'i, from sahabi. What is beneficial knowledge? It's mainly the last two lines, which is the knowledge of the book and the ahadith of Rasulullah, which have been narrated from the sahaba and tabi'in. Then the Shaykh he carries on to say, this used to be the knowledge of the Salaf. What was the knowledge of the Salaf? The Quran and Sunnah. Then speech became plentiful in those that came after them, in that which does not benefit. So knowledge with the Salaf is more, and in addition, speech in the later generations is more. And the Shaykh here is mentioning the difference between our speech, our knowledge, and the speech and knowledge of the Salaf. The Salaf, and the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, and their students, had more knowledge, but their speech was less. And when they spoke, a little bit. What's the case in our time? We have more speech, less knowledge. Less knowledge. And this is the case. Go to a lot of these universities. For example, when I did my master's in UK, a 3-hour lecture, 3 hours, and longer than the durus we have. What's the point that he actually made? Well, 2-3 points you can summarize in a paragraph. And he's speaking. What's the actual knowledge that he's mentioning? Most of it is kalam fadhi. Most of it is nothing. But actual knowledge is 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And just because somebody speaks more, doesn't mean that he has more knowledge. So, we can apply this to sometimes when somebody wants to learn and seek knowledge, they want to go to somebody who's able to speak for such a long time. Or he's able to, speak very eloquently and get a lot of followers and viewers and so on. And then when the person who actually truly has knowledge, maybe because he speaks a bit less, and maybe he doesn't make it so, doesn't make da'wah so dramatic, they leave that person and they don't learn from him. Why? Because they think because this person doesn't speak as much, he has less knowledge. But that's not the case. In fact, the Arabs, in one story, a person asked a Bedouin, "What is eloquence according to you? According to you, what is eloquence?" And he said, what is less, but it's straight to the point. And what's considered not being eloquent is, I think Shaykh Ahmed told me this. Shaykh, he told me this fa'idah? Allah, it was a few days ago somebody mentioned this. And what is not being eloquent is when a person speaks for a long time and he's not able to get his point across. And he speaks and speaks and speaks. He fills up the time, but the actual point that is trying to be made, he's not able to deliver it. So, knowledge is not based on how much a person speaks. I remember one time, somebody asked me a question, and I gave him an answer. I gave him just 1-2 sentences. He said, "What should I do in this case?" So I just said, "Do this and that. Do 1 and 2." That's what I said. And he replied, "Is that it?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, I thought there would be more." I said, "Khlas, I've told you to do 2 things, that's it. Finish those 2 things, come back to me, then I'll give you more." Khlas, he never messaged me again. So, people just want to hear a lot. What's the issue? What's the ruling on this issue? What's this? What's that? They want, a long answer. But look at the ulama, look at Ibn Baz rahimahullah. Look at his fatwa. Sheikh, what's the ruling on this? Ruling, and then 2-3 ayat affirming the point, and khalas. No. His fatwa 1 minute, 2 minutes, they won't go longer than that. Yeah, there are some ulama that Ibn Athim rahimahullah, he likes to go into a bit more detail and so on. But the point being, it's not a condition that for a person to speak more, that means that he has more knowledge. Rather, the Salaf were the opposite. We'll read this, the Shaykh brings the narration. Hamad ibn Zayd said, I asked Ayyub as-Sikhtiyani, is knowledge today more in those that came before? He replied, Al-kalamu al-yawma akthar, wal-ilmu fima taqaddama akthar. Speech today is more, and knowledge with those who preceded is more. And I'll finish with a statement actually of Hamdun ibn al-Qassar. Hamdun ibn al-Qassar rahimahullah. And write this down because it's very powerful. He was asked a question, and he was asked, Ma balu kalam al-salafi anfa'u min kalamina? That why is it that the speech of the Salaf is more beneficial than our speech? Why is the speech of the Salaf more beneficial than our speech? And he said, لأنهم تكلموا لعز الإسلام ورضا الرحمن. Because they, the Salaf, they spoke to give honor to Islam. They spoke to give honor to Islam and for the pleasure of Ar-Rahman. They spoke for the honor of Islam and the pleasure of Ar-Rahman. وَنَحْنُ نَتَكَلَّمُ لِعِزِّ النُّفُوسِ. And we speak to give honor to ourselves. وَطَلَبِ الدُّنْيَا. And to gain something from the dunya, from this world. وَرِيَضَ الْخَلْقِ. And to gain the pleasure of the creation. And we don't speak, we don't always think, okay, what is actually more beneficial for the people? What is more pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's how the Salaf would think, and that's how they would speak. But us, we speak why? لِعِزِّ النَّفْسِ. For our own benefit. Yeah, so somebody can say, Allah barik, look at the amount of knowledge that he has. وَطَلَبِ الدُّنْيَا. And then to gain something from the dunya. وَرِضَ الْخَلْقِ. And to make the people happy. And to give, to gain the pleasure of the people. So this is the fourth principle, which is to focus on the Quran and Sunnah. Okay, and everything which helps you understand the Quran and Sunnah. That's the summary. Yani, the third principle taught us to be motivated and then to be focused on that which is beneficial. What is that which is beneficial? The knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah, and everything which helps you understand the Quran and Sunnah. Knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah, and everything which helps you to study, to learn the Quran and Sunnah. The fifth principle is treading the known path that leads to it. Yani what this means is that you take the correct path when it comes to seeking knowledge. We mentioned in the beginning of last lesson that every journey has a path. You want to go from here to Makkah, for example. First, there's a path. From Medina to Makkah, it's called Tariq al-Hijrah, the path of Hijrah. Those that that have gone, no. There's a way of going. So when it comes to seeking knowledge, likewise, you have to take that path. And this book generally mentions 20 principles regarding that path. The Shaykh here wants to be a bit more precise. So let's read what the Shaykh what he says. He says everything that is sought has a path and has a path that leads to it. So whoever treads the known path to his goal will reach it, and whoever turns away from it does not attain his goal. Indeed, knowledge has a path. Whoever misses it becomes lost and does not attain his target, and perhaps he may gain a small amount of benefit whilst overworking himself. And he's saying, if you don't take the correct path of seeking knowledge, one or two things will happen. Either you won't reach your objective, or you'll reach, maybe you reach your objective or some sort of benefit, but you'll put in so much more extra effort which wasn't required. And that which you could have learned in 1 year, it took you 10 years to learn instead. Why? Because you didn't take the correct path. Okay? Now instead of going from A to B, you ended up going around and mishwar, and you went here, there, back, forth, and even if you reached there, it took you 10 years. The path has been mentioned in a comprehensive statement by Mohammed Murtada al-Zabidi, the author of Taj al-Urus, in his poem that he called Alfiyat al-Sanad. He said, فَمَا حَوَى الْغَايَةُ فِي أَلْفِ سَنَةٍ شَخْصٌ فَخُذْ مِنْ كُلِّ فَنٍّ أَحْسَنَهُ بِحِفْظِ مَتْنٍ جَامِعٍ لِلْرَاجِحِ تَأْخُذُهُ عَلَى مُفِيدٍ نَاصِحِ. The Shaykh is basically basing this chapter upon these lines of poetry. These lines of poetry mean, and no one has reached 1,000 years, so take from every field the best of it. Yani, you're not going to live for 1,000 years, and even if you did, you wouldn't be able to attain all the knowledge. But argument's sake, let's say you can. No, even then, nobody's going to live that long. So what option do you have? So take from each field the best of it. Take the most important things that you need to know. How? بِحِفْظِ مَتْنٍ جَامِعٍ لِلْرَاجِحِ. By memorizing a comprehensive text with the most correct opinion. يعني جامع للراجح, it has the most correct opinion, and it has, it's very precise, to the point, and so on. And you taking it with a beneficial, sincere teacher. The Shaykh is going to explain these lines of poetry now. So he says, the path of knowledge and its way is built upon two affairs. Whoever takes up both becomes a glorifier to knowledge, because he seeks it from where it is possible to attain it. What are the points that are mentioned in this line of poetry? He's going to explain now. He says, the first affair. What's the first point? Is that you memorize, memorizing a comprehensive text with the most correct opinion. Yani somebody who is serious about seeking knowledge, in each science he should memorize a text. And there's different levels, but for a beginner, in Aqidah, for example, Usul al-Thalatha. Okay? When it comes to Arabic grammar, Al-Ajurrumiyah, for example. Each science, he should memorize a text. When it comes to Hadith, 40 Hadith of Imam Nawawi, as the first text. When it comes to Mustalah al-Hadith, Bayquniyah. Okay, these are simple ones. That person, if somebody wants to be well grounded in his knowledge, then each science he should memorize at least one text which is precise, has the most correct opinions, and that the ulama advise. Because we mentioned in the beginning last week that for a person to be well grounded in knowledge, he needs three things: memorization, understanding, and acting upon it. So memorization is something very important. For a person to be serious in his knowledge, he has to put in the time and effort. Attending general lectures, listening to podcasts, going to conferences, you're not going to learn knowledge like that. And these are iman boosters. Something which will give you temporary benefit. But that, I know they have fa'idah, that will motivate you. But now that you're motivated and that you've learned a little bit and you want to now move on to the next level. Next level is what? Putting in the effort and attending durus, attending the lessons, going to the scholars, and putting in the effort, revising, and memorizing. So you should try your best to memorize. Obviously, initially, the asl is that you memorize the Quran. Somebody is not able to memorize the Quran properly, maybe he doesn't have that much time, no problem. He can maybe memorize some of the mutun, some of the smaller mutun. Which books should they memorize? I want to mention 4 things of books that a person should memorize. And which books should they memorize? I'm not going to tell you the actual books, but I'm going to mention to you characteristics of books. And these are the characteristics for you to memorize and even to study. Not just to memorize, but to study as well. Which book should you study? Okay? Those books that you should memorize and study and give importance to are the books which have the following 4 characteristics. The first is those books which the ulama have praised. Those books which the ulama, the scholars, have praised. They've said, this is a book to study and this is a book not to study. This is a book to memorize, this is not a book to memorize. Because like we said, they are the ones who have taken this path. So they know. They know the obstacles, they know what to do, they know the shortcuts. Maybe not a shortcut, but the direct method, that's maybe better, the direct path. So the first is, we choose those books that the ulama have praised. Secondly, we memorize and choose those books where the authors have sound aqidah. The authors have sound aqidah. So we shouldn't be memorizing books of the people of innovation. Especially when in majority of these sciences, Ahlul Sunnah have a plethora of books. The third, and something very important as well, is that the book is makhdum. The book is served. A lot of service has been done to this book. A lot of service has been done to this book. What that means is that this book is a book which ulama have given importance to by serving it. Ulama have explained this book, whether in their lessons orally or written explanations. It's not taught by just one sheikh, but it's widespread. Wherever you go, you'll find somebody teaching this book. This book maybe has been translated as well, so you can benefit people in other languages and in your own language. So the book which is widespread and a lot of khidmah, a lot of service has been done to this book. Sometimes there are some books which are very good, right? Maybe better than some of the more famous books. But what's the issue? You study that book, you won't find anyone to teach you. Or you find somebody to teach you, but it's only at one sheikh, right? And obviously what the knowledge he will give you, there'll be knowledge in there, but it's limited. It's only what he says. When you have the books which are Usul al-Thalatha, for example, خلاص. You want knowledge? خلاص. Which explanation do you want? Do you want a hadithi explanation? خلاص, you can go to the muhaddithin, they've explained this book. You want a summarized explanation? خلاص, Shaykh Sarhan. You want an explanation with good, easy Arabic? Shaykh Saleh Al-Usymi, and good aqeedah and so on. You want a bit more technical? Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah. You want something which combines a lot of them? Shaykh Al-Muhsin Al-Qasim. Yeah. Whichever, what do you want? You read one, you want more information? خلاص, there's so many there. Right? And then if you go to another place, and if you choose a book which is only taught by one sheikh, if you go to another place, right, no one's teaching it there, what do? Or if you want to teach this book, I learn Arabic, I want to teach that book in English. Khlas, the book's not available in English. Right? So what do I give to the students? And so on. So that is the third characteristic. And fourthly, you choose that which is the most beneficial. That which is the most beneficial. You don't choose a book which just sounds good. Or people say, oh, this is an amazing book. That which is actually beneficial for you. So there may be something which, there's benefit in it, maybe some lines of poetry, some hikam, some wisdoms, but what's more beneficial for you right now? For you to memorize that, or to memorize, let's say, 40 hadith of Nawawi? That will be, the 40 hadith, so you memorize that which has more benefit for you. So this is the first issue. The second, the Shaykh, let's carry on what he says. He says, and whoever thinks they will attain knowledge without memorizing, then he is seeking the impossible. When you ask the ulama a question, they give you an answer and they give you the dalil straight away. Right? That dalil, did they have a paper in front of them? Did they do a quick Google search? No. Where did the answer come from? From their memory. Right? And there's nothing wrong. There might be something, I ask a question, I'll know the answer, but maybe I can't remember the exact wording. Khlas, and I check, that's fine. That happens to every single person. Okay? And I've seen some of my teachers, sometimes they say, yeah, I can't really exactly remember where it is. Obviously, generally the elder, the scholar, the less that it happens, because he's had more time to revise, more time to teach, and so on. But where did that knowledge come from? From memorizing. He says the text that is memorized is one that is comprehensive and inclusive to the most correct opinion, meaning the one that is widely entrusted by the people of knowledge. And I talked about the 4 characteristics. The second affair is, so the correct path is what? By you studying those books which have these characteristics and memorizing. Is memorizing those books. Secondly, taking it upon a beneficial and sincere teacher. They take it from a beneficial and sincere teacher. You don't study from yourselves, from the books. Otherwise, you'll understand incorrectly and you'll make more mistakes than you do corrections. Nor do you study from TikTok or Instagram Reels. Or some of them might have fa'idah, especially if you're following the ulama, rahimahullah. But the actual way is what? إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ, as the Prophet said. That ilm is by ta'allum. What is ta'allum? Ta'allum is going and sitting with a teacher, as a scholar, and learning from him. And revising, and he's testing you, and so on. And you do mulazama of him, you stick with him, and you stay with him for a long time. You don't jump from one shaykh to another. So you can say, look, I've studied with 10 different teachers. No, you've studied the first page of every single book from 10 different teachers. The actual knowledge is nothing. So to go to a teacher and to study from them. He says, so taking it upon a beneficial and sincere teacher, so you go to a teacher that will make you understand its meaning and who is distinguished with the following 2 descriptions. And what type of teacher should you have? He's going to mention 2 descriptions. Firstly, he is beneficial, i.e. he's qualified in teaching. And you go to somebody who's qualified, not any single person who just makes a YouTube channel and has got a number of followers. He's not qualified. If you want an operation done, let's say a heart operation or whatever, who are you going to go to? A doctor who's qualified, or are you going to go to somebody who's got let's say 100,000 followers, but he's a student? Which one would you go to? You go to a doctor, no doubt. I don't think anyone would go to that person who just has the followers, right? And this is a person who deals with the physical heart, and Islam, alhamdulillah, deals with the spiritual heart, which is much more important. So likewise, in the matters of your religion, you take it from those who are qualified. And ultimately, they are the ulama, rahmahumullah. And if you can't learn from the ulama, right, then the tulab al-ilm who are qualified, who have studied with the ulama, or have access to the ulama, you study with them. So the first is that they are qualified. The Shaykh, he says, so he is from those who are known to have studied knowledge and sought it, up until he acquired it and then he gained a strong command in it. The origin of this is what has been narrated in Abu Dawood. تَسْمَعُونَ وَيَسْمَعُ مِنْكُمْ وَيَسْمَعُ مِمَّنْ سَمِعَ مِنْكُمْ. You will hear and it will be heard from you, and it will be heard from those that hear it from you. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying to the Sahaba that you are hearing from me, i.e., you are learning from me. And then it will be heard from you, yani people will learn from you. And then it will be heard from those who heard from you, yani people will study from your students. So he's showing that this chain, that person needs to go and study with the ulama. And that which is significant here is a general address and not the one who is being addressed specifically. Yani, he's saying that even though this hadith is the person speaking to the Sahaba, it's not restricted to them. Yani, it applies for everyone. What is important is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. Because when he mentions something to the Sahaba, it applies to the whole ummah. So it ceases to be the case that from the signposts of knowledge in this nation is that the latter take it from its predecessor. So this is the first thing that you should look for in a teacher. The second thing that you should look for in a teacher is being sincere. What does it mean that it is sincere? Firstly, is that he is a suitable role model for you to follow. He's not somebody who's just got a knowledge, but he's a role model in his conduct, in his ibadah, in his aqidah. Yani he's from Ahlul Sunnah, you need to follow him. And then also in his mannerisms, in his conduct. Yani he's not somebody who has maybe studied, but he's not a good role model for the people. He's always going out, he's always doing this, he's always doing that, wasting time and so on. He's not a good role model. And so that wouldn't come under the meaning of being sincere. And the second is that he knows the way of teaching. And he knows how to teach. And he gives the students what they need and not what they want. And sometimes the students want a certain thing, they want a certain dars. The Shaykh knows, no, what is more beneficial for you is for you to do this. So he gives them that. He gives them that which is more beneficial to them. So this chapter has mentioned some important points, which for you to summarize, I would advise you to do a tree diagram to make it easier. So what is the correct path of seeking knowledge? In this summarized answer, it is to memorize a book. And we mentioned 4 characteristics of those books. And then secondly, to study from a teacher. And this teacher needs to have 2 qualities. He is qualified, qualified, and that he is sincere. And him being sincere means he's a good role model for you to follow, and that he knows how to teach. And he gives you that which you need and not that which you want. Okay? So, in summary, memorize a precise, correct, a book which has the correct opinions, and secondly, study with a teacher. So this is the 5th principle. We move on to the 6th principle, which is, the book has 20 principles. The first few take a bit longer, and the second half of the book is a lot quicker. But inshallah, we want to go. Now, for today's lesson, I don't think we printed it out, but we sent you the PDF, so you can follow the PDFs, inshallah. What we could add to the previous point as well is the importance of when you're studying, and the teacher will, will direct you towards this, but it is to, solidify that knowledge and to keep revising. And even if a book's being taught, and you see a new dars being done on that lesson, don't say, "Oh, I've done this book, I don't need to attend." No, attend again and again and again and again and again. And this is what the ulama rahimahumullah used to do. And you'll hear stories of ulama repeating a certain book tens of times, hundreds of times. One scholar he either read or taught Sahih Bukhari 700 times, for example. Most of us have probably not even read a small book 10 times, never mind Bukhari 700 times. Ibn Baz rahimahullah, when he was a qadi in Dillam, a judge in Riyadh, he taught Usul al-Thalatha 100 times. He taught Usul al-Thalatha more than 100 times. So Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, great, one of the greatest muhaddithin of of the recent scholars. He should be teaching Bukhari and so on. But no, what did he do? He taught Usul al-Thalatha 100 times. Why? He knew that's what the people needed. They want all these other things, don't know. But what did they need? They need the Usul al-Thalatha. So he taught them that. Yeah. Okay, the sixth principle is giving attention to the different subjects in your search and giving precedence to most important respectfully. This we indicated towards before, which is that we study the Quran Sunnah and everything which helps you understand the Quran and Sunnah. So we do not neglect all of the sciences. And one fa'idah I want to mention here is in regards to how are all of the Islamic sciences connected? How are all of the Islamic sciences connected? Because very important. This is very important. Somebody who says, I'm a specialist in Aqidah, if he doesn't know Usul al-Fiqh, he doesn't know Arabic language, even that science that he claims to be a specialist in, he's not a specialist. He can't be a specialist. Why? Because all of the sciences they're connected. I'm going to explain how. Firstly, in terms of where they are derived from. In terms of where they are derived from. All of the all of the Islamic sciences are taken from the Quran and Sunnah. And the source is the same. And generally the Quran and Sunnah and sometimes other sciences. Usul al-Fiqh is taken from Arabic grammar and it's taken from other things as well. So they are all derived from the same place. The second is the subject matter. The subject matter. And you can have one issue, but it is studied in different sciences in different ways. Sometimes the same and sometimes they're different. Okay, and this is what we talked about last night, when we talked about studying something from a certain, or looking at something from a certain angle, right? Each science will look at it from a different angle. We have Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, for example. The ulama of qira'at will look at the different ways of reciting it, and is it an ayah from Surah Fatiha or is it not? Some of the Qur'an says, depending on which qira'ah you recite, it is an ayah, and depending on which qira'ah, and other qira'at, it's not considered an ayah. And that, wallahu a'lam, according to me, the issue of is Basmala an ayah of Surah Fatiha or not, this seems to me the most correct opinion to me, which is that it depends on the qira'ah. In some qira'at it's an ayah, in some qira'at it's not considered an ayah. Anyways, that's from the angle of of those who specialize in qira'at. And then you have those who specialize in Arabic grammar, that they look at the grammar rulings pertaining to the basmala. Ba is harf jar, ism is ism majroor, and it's mudaf, and lafz al-jalal is mudaf ilayh, and they go into the grammar side of it. Then you have the ulama of balagha. The ulama of balagha look at the hidden gems of the basmala, and then they say things like the ba and the ism is a jar majroor, so it has a hidden meaning, which is that I start my actions, and they go into issues like that. And then the ulama of fiqh, right, they talk about, do we have to recite the basmala in salah? If we do have to recite it, do we recite it aloud? Do we do it quietly? It's the same thing, it's the basmala, but look at each science is looking at it from different aspects. So this is in regards to the subject matter. The fourth is the effect that each of these sciences have on the other. The effect that each of the sciences have on the other. What does it mean by effect? It means that, for example, there were some of the people of innovation, when it came to Arabic grammar, they would place certain, they would say this is a principle in Arabic grammar from themselves, but why did they say that is a principle? Only so that they can use that principle in Aqidah to prove their ideology. So they say this is a principle, then they'll come to an ayah in the Quran and say, this ayah means this because we use this principle from grammar. So you can see how Nahu is Arabic grammar is having an effect on a person's Aqidah, right? And also the opposite way around as well. So when people want to in the other sciences, in the grammar, in usul fiqh and so on, when they place the rulings or their principles, why have they written that? Because of their aqidah, right? So you can see that the sciences have an effect on one another. And the fourth way is, the first is where it's derived from. The second is the subject matter. And the third is the effect that each science has on another science. The effect that science has on the other sciences. And then the last point is to understand a science itself, you have to know the other sciences. To understand a science itself, you have to study and know the other sciences. And this is something which is known. Somebody who studies usul al-fiqh, right at the end, when they talk about ijtihad and a mujtahid and the scholar, they mention the conditions of a mujtahid. What makes somebody a mujtahid? Or what makes somebody a faqih, a jurist? And in tafsir, or in usul tafsir, they talk about what are the conditions that make somebody a mufassir, somebody who is qualified to do tafsir of the Quran. And they'll mention a number of things. They'll say a condition, he is only able to deduce rulings if he knows the Arabic language, if he knows all those ahadith pertaining to rulings, if he knows this, if he knows that, and they mention a number of conditions. And if somebody wants to specialize in fiqh, he can't become a faqih except if he knows these other sciences. So even that science that he claims to be a specialist in, within those sciences, the ulama say you can't be a specialist in this science unless you know the other sciences. Unless you know the other sciences. Even in Aqidah. Because in Aqidah, you need to have usul al-fiqh, for example. Because Aqidah, you are basing your beliefs upon the Quran and Sunnah. It's not as simple as getting an ayah and say, yeah, the ayah means this. You have to use usul al-fiqh. Say, no, the ayah means this because of A, B, and C from usul al-fiqh. And we explained this when we took the book Usul Ilm al-Usul by Ibn Uthaymeen, the usul al-fiqh book by Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah. So these 4 points show the importance of learning all of the sciences and not just focusing on just certain sciences. There are some people, all they do is Aqidah, which is good. We've talked about the importance of Aqidah and Tawheed. Yesterday, the whole day was just on Tawheed. We've talked about the importance of it. But there are other sciences. There's fiqh. Learn about those things which are obligatory upon you. And then there's, and if you want to become a specialist class, you need to know Arabic language. You need to know the Arabic language. And I don't want to go into the importance of Arabic language because, inshallah, I think next week we're planning a lecture on that. Inshallah, the flyer should be out soon. Let's read what the Shaykh, what he says. He says, Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah says in Capturing Thoughts, Sayyid al-Khatir, gathering different fields of knowledge is praiseworthy. من كل فن خذ ولا تجهل به فالحر مطلع على الأسرار. Take from every field and do not be ignorant of it, for the free is observant over the secrets. Yani, if you truly understand something, you should be free and you should not be narrow-minded. You should have knowledge of all of the other sciences. The Shaykh who teaches Mohammed ibn Mani', he says in Irshad al-Tullab, it is not befitting for the virtuous to leave off a subject from the beneficial subjects of knowledge that helps in understanding the book and the sunnah, if he knows that he has the capability to learn it. Likewise, it is not permissible for him to speak badly about the knowledge he is ignorant of, nor to belittle the knowledge of, to belittle the one belittle the one who is. I think that's a mistake. To belittle the one who is knowledgeable of it. For indeed, this is a deficiency and despicable, so it's upon the intellectual to speak with knowledge or to remain silent with forbearance, otherwise he will come underneath the saying, which we'll read in a sentence, in a second. And he's saying here, you'll find people that, you'll find those busying themselves with hadith, belittling fiqh, for example. I say, it's a speech of Prophet ﷺ, why are you busying yourself with fiqh and so on? They'll belittle it. And the reality is they belittle it because they don't know it. Test them, they don't know it. Well, honestly, test them. Ask them what we took last week. Okay, you're studying hadith, tell me the conditions of salah. They won't be able to answer. Okay? Those that study aqidah will belittle other sciences. Those that study fiqh will belittle hadith. You guys just memorize. You don't understand anything. Study fiqh, that's where the understanding comes. And they'll belittle hadith. Okay? Arabic languages say, that's all good, but you can't understand any of that without the Arabic language. And learn the Arabic language, you can't even speak properly, you're making mistakes. What's all this that all of these other sciences that you're going into too much? All of them we should study. All of them have their benefit, and all of them are important, and all of them are skills that a student of knowledge needs to have. And he needs to know all of these sciences. And then later on, if he wants to specialize in one, no problem. But he should have a foundation of knowledge in each of the sciences. He should have studied at least one main matan text in each of the sciences. And the Shaykh mentions some lines of poetry. He says, أتاني أن سهلا ثم جهلا علوما ليس يعرفهن سهل علوما ما قراها ما قلاها ولكن الرضا بالجهل سهل. He says, it reached me that Sahal, that's the name of a person, ignorantly dispraised, sciences that Sahal has no clue of. Sciences, had he known, he wouldn't have disliked, but in any case, being pleased with ignorance is Sahal, is easy. And it's a nice line of poetry. The word Sahal, it's a name, and the word Sahal also means easy. So he's saying, Sahal is saying this and that, and then the last line, but being pleased with ignorance is Sahal, yani is easy. It's like a play on words the Shaykh used. Meaning, for a person just to speak without knowledge, he doesn't know the other sciences, but for him to give rulings, no, this is like this and this is like that, you'll find many students of knowledge, beginners, لا يعرف شيئا يعني, they don't know anything, they've not studied anything, they studied 1 or 2 books in Aqidah, 1 book in Hadith, and that's it. And they want to talk about, yes, a student of knowledge needs this, and a student of knowledge needs to do this, and he needs to study this book. And then I know people, they don't know anything. And speak Arabic to make mistakes left, right, and center, and then they write blogs, or they write captions, and a student of knowledge needs to be like this, and he needs to do this, and so on. Being ignorant, it's easy for you to speak like that. Okay? What is upon a student of knowledge? Not to speak. It's upon him to learn. It's upon him to learn. Focus on all of these other sciences. And don't busy yourself with speaking about this and speaking without knowledge. And even in here, the Sheikh mentioned, and it's a nice fa'idah, he says, just before the lines of poetry, he says, it's upon the intellectual to speak with knowledge or to remain silent with forbearance. Yani, when is speaking praiseworthy? It's when it's done with knowledge. And when is being silent praiseworthy? If it's done out of forbearance. Yani, not every, a lot of ulama rahimahullah talk about being silent and not speaking, and so on, generally, but we need to be more precise, not every single situation. Yani, if you say to me, كيف حالك, how are you? And I stay silent. Is that considered good? Like that situation is different. So silence is only praiseworthy when it's done out of forbearance. If somebody says something to you, somebody makes you angry, then you stay silent. Then that's when it is praiseworthy. That's a nice fa'idah from the Shaykh. He says, it's upon the intellectual to speak with knowledge or to be silent with forbearance. Yeah. So this is the Shaykh continues, he says, giving attention to different sciences only becomes beneficial by adhering to 2 principles. Firstly, by giving precedence to that which is most important, and then most important. From those things that the student needs to uphold his servitude to Allah. So, which sciences are the most important? Aqidah, that's the foundation. Fiqh, especially fiqh of salah, wudu, fasting, zakah, hajj. If you've got a business, those things which you need on a day-to-day basis, and these are things which are the most important. And so you study that which is the most important. So even though I said study all of the sciences, but there's an order of studying them. There's an order of studying them. If somebody, a new Muslim, he doesn't know how to pray, there's 2 classes at the same time. And for example, Tuesday night, I have a lesson, I'm teaching Arabic language. Shaykh Ahmed is teaching fiqh of salah. Which lesson should he go to? Fiqh of salah. He goes to Shaykh Ahmed. Okay? And he doesn't come to my lesson. Why? That is more beneficial and more important for that person to learn. And this is a principle as well. I think Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah mentioned. I learned it from my teacher, Shaykh Hamid al-Husari. He said, الاشتغال بالمفضول يخل عن الفاضل ولا شك. Busying yourself with that which has less benefit, it will make you lose out on that which has more benefit. And there's no doubt in that. Meaning, you attended the Arabic language, good. But you missed out on that which is much more beneficial for you, which is the fiqh of salah. And these are things which are obligatory. And now you're gaining sin because you're not praying salah properly. So always busy yourself with that which is more beneficial. And shaitan, he has different ways of making a person become deviant, which is at first he takes him to shirk. If we can't take him to shirk, then to bid'ah. If not bid'ah, to major sins. If not to major sins, then to minor sins. If not to minor sins, what does he do? In those things which are halal, he takes you and busies you with those things which are less beneficial. and he makes you lose out on that which is more beneficial. So all is focused on what is most beneficial for me. What is more beneficial for me. And the second thing is that his intent at the beginning of his study is to cover a summarized book in every field, up until he completes the different beneficial subjects, that he looks at that which suits him, in which he finds ease, comfort and ability in, then he masters that, whether it is one subject or more than that. Yani the Shaykh is saying, in each science, you have to study at least one text. One text in each science. You have to have knowledge of all of the sciences. And then after that, one science you lean more towards, you like more, you enjoy more, you find it easier, you can specialize in that science, no problem whatsoever. But as a foundational level, you have to have knowledge in each science. You have to study at least one matan, one text in each science. Then he says, from the amazing speech of the Mauritanians, they're known for their memorization and so on, those from Mauritania, is a saying of one of them where he says, وَإِن تُرِيد تَحْصِيلَ فَنٍ تَمِّمَهُ وَعَنْ سِوَاهُ قَبْلِ الْإِنْتِهَاءِ مَهْ يعني قف وفي ترادف العلوم المنعوجة إن توأمان استبقا لن يخرجا. If you want to acquire a field, then go all the way. And when you start studying a science or a book, finish the whole book. Until you have finished from other than it, stay away. Until you finish that one book, stay away from the other ones. Don't study the other ones. Okay, don't busy yourself. And you're studying a science, focus on one, or maybe two, and that's it. Don't be studying 10 sciences at the same time. Every time a lesson starts, he wants to go here, wants to go there, wants to go there, wants to go there. What happens? He doesn't finish any of them. Maybe a lot of people know this from experience. And maybe they've been practicing or attending lectures for 10 years. How many books have they actually fully completed? They can count on their hands. Why? They start here, then they stop. New dars, they start here and they stop. And dars here, start and they stop. That the Sheikh is saying. What do they say here? They say, pick one. Choose one which is the most beneficial. Start it, don't look at anything else. Finish that book. Once you finish that book, then khalas, move on to another one. He says, and combining multiple subjects have been made illicit, يعني المنع, impermissible. يعني it's not allowed for a person to be doing too many things at once. Allah says in Surah Fatir, ما جعل الله لرجلين لقلب في رجلين من جوفه. That Allah has not made two hearts in a person. يعني he can only focus on one thing, not two things. من قلبين في جوفه. He's not made two hearts in a person's chest. Like twins racing out of the womb, none would exit. يعني if a mother was giving birth to a twins, يعني two, did it come at the same time, or one comes out and then the second? One at a time. Same thing is here. And for whoever finds within himself the strength to combine, then he combines, and his situation is an exception from the rule. Right? There might be a person who can do 3-4 lessons at the same time, but he's an exception. Right? That's not the general rule. The general rule is 1 or 2, and that's it. Right? More than that, that's too much. That's too much. So that is the 6th principle. The 7th principle, the rush to acquisition whilst benefiting from your youthful age. And the Shaykh is basically trying to say here is that you should benefit from your youth and not delay. To benefit from your youth and not to delay. Why? Because later on you get busy. And right now you don't have children, you don't have to work, you have more time. And this is not just for the youth, even right now, whatever age that you are at, you're in a situation right now that you may not be in the future. So don't delay and say, in half a year I'll have holidays, then I'll study. You don't know, maybe that time will come and other things will come up. The holidays come, you have to travel here, you have to go there, and you're not able to do so. Or you can say, let me finish university, then I'll have time. No, then what happens? Straight into work life. My cousin became a doctor. Allah barik lah. Anytime we had a family gathering, he would say, I'm at university, I'm busy, studying for exams. We let him go. Now he's finished. Now we call him, what's his excuse? I got work. So, life busies you. Don't delay. You have the opportunity now, take the opportunity. And this is taken from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. where he says, اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس. Take advantage of five before five. Take advantage of your youth before your old age, and your health before your sickness, and your wealth before your poverty, your free time before you become busy, and your life before your death. Don't delay. Don't say, they call it in Arabic taswif, saying sawfa af'al, sawfa, yani, I will do this and I'll do this. I won't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu and Bukhari, he used to say, إذا أمسيت فلا تنتظر الصباح. إذا أصبحت فلا تنتظر المساء. If you reach the evening, then do not wait for the morning. Yani, you've reached the evening, you can do something now, do it now, don't wait for the morning. وإذا أصبحت فلا تنتظر المساء. And if you reach the morning, don't wait for the evening. وخذ من صحتك لمرضك. And take advantage of your health before your illness. ومن حياتك لموتك. And take advantage of your life before your death. That's Imam Nawawi mentions that hadith number 40. Hadith number 40 is كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عابر سبيل. Be in this world as though you are a traveler or a wayfarer, يعني somebody who's on his path. And after that he mentions the statement of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. And the ulama rahimahullah talk a lot about taking advantage of your youth and not delaying and so on. So I'm not going to explain too much, we'll just read what the Shaykh says. He mentions the statement of Imam Ahmad. Imam Ahmad said, I never compared youthfulness to anything except by something that was in my sleeve and then dropped. Yani, how quick was his youthfulness? As quick as this, right, it fell, خلاص. And as quick as that, it was like nothing. Something he put in his sleeve and then it just fell. And he's saying really quick, meaning don't think in the future when this happens then I'll do it. That time will just fly by. You know what I mean? SubhanAllah. I still remember the first day at Medina University. I was 16. I still remember at the airport. I remember the other three brothers that I met. I remember the questions they asked me. I was 16 and one brother asked me, are you married? I remember all of that. And then what happened? It's been about 10 years now since that time. And time's gone so quick. I remember the Arabic Institute. I remember at a time I got bored of Arabic. I was like, too much Arabic. Let me study. I want to study fiqh and aqidah. I remember times where I would sit in lessons, I didn't understand the word that the Shaykh was saying. Shaykh speaking for an hour and I'm just daydreaming. I don't know what the Shaykh's saying. He's saying words, what are those words? Wallahu a'lam. And all that time I remember. And it's as though it went by like that. And I'm pretty sure most of you special elders, they can say the same about their life as well. So the time of youth goes really quickly. The Shaykh, he says, and knowledge in your youthful years is quicker to the soul and stronger in connecting and remaining. Yani what you learn when you're young stays with you a lot more. When you're older, it's harder to remember and so on. Hassan al-Basri, he said, العلم في الصغر كالنقش في الحجر. Knowledge when you're younger, it's like an engraving in a stone. When you engrave something in a stone, خلاص, it stays. It's not going to change. Right? Like that is when you learn when you're young. So the strength of how long knowledge remains as a youth is like the strength of the engravement remaining upon the rock. So whoever takes advantage of his youth will reach his goal and will be thankful of what he sees when he becomes old. And then mentions some lines of poetry. Take advantage of your youth, O young one, for when you become old, the people will praise their achievements. But let not what has been mentioned make you misunderstand that the older person cannot seek knowledge. Yani, this doesn't mean I don't want some of the elders getting upset, I'm not young anymore. It doesn't mean that. It means, what this means is, those who are young, don't waste your time. And those who are older, you can learn, no problem. Yani, it's not the end of the world, you can still learn. Imam Bukhari says, in Sahih Bukhari, تَعَلَّمُوا أَصْحَابَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ كِبَارًا. That the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sought knowledge when they were old in age. Kibara, when they were old in age. And the Prophet became a prophet, what age? 40. Abu Bakr, 38. Many of the other companions were old as well. Rather, those who are the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who studied knowledge at an old age. Imam Bukhari mentioned in a chapter of knowledge from his Sahih. That's what I just mentioned. It's there in the footnotes what I mentioned. It only becomes harder to seek knowledge at an older age, as has been clarified by Al-Mawardi in Adab al-Din wa-Dunya, due to the many distractions, the overcoming responsibilities, and the plentiful connections. So whoever can free himself from those things, then he can acquire knowledge. Why do we say it's harder for somebody older to seek knowledge? not because they're not as intellectually capable or something, not because of that reason. Why? Because the person becomes busy. The person doesn't have that time. Yani, if you want to memorize the Quran and you send a child to the halqa for Quran, how many hours is he there? In the Quran class, 2 hours, 3 hours. How many hours is he memorizing at home? A number of hours at home. Somebody who is older, has family and so on, can he dedicate 6, 7 hours a day to memorizing the Quran? He can't. Okay? That's why we say generally it's harder for somebody older. But if a person gets rid of all those distractions and he becomes serious, or even if he has those responsibilities but he's able to organize his time, and he sets, let's say, 1 hour a day, every single day, to seek knowledge, or he sorts his timetable out, without a doubt, he can seek knowledge. And you find many of the ulama, they started seeking knowledge in later age, 30s, 40s, 50s, and then they became mufti of Egypt or mufti of this place. I can't remember the names, but I heard some stories of ulama like that. I heard one story of one alim. His job was, there was like a river. The students had to get from here to the masjid over here. And his job was to take the students, taxi basically, from here to there. Okay? And on the boat, the students would be talking about the masail, they'll be revising, testing each other regarding what they are taking in class. So that motivated this person to learn at the age of 40 approximately. And they say 20 years later he became the mufti of Egypt. And so there's nothing stopping a person from studying. No. So this is the 7th principle. The 8th principle is sticking to tranquility in acquiring knowledge and abandoning hastiness. And not being hasty, meaning trying to attain everything at one go. Right? That I want to learn this, and that all in one go. No. As Imam Zuhri says, "Man rama al-ilma jumla, dhahaba anhu jumla." Whoever tries to take all of knowledge in one go, it will leave him in one go. It goes in from one ear, comes out of the other. Obviously, for example, we have dawrat, for example. Dawrat are good because you learn a lot in a small time. But if you don't revise, you're going to forget. Also, we're doing a few dawrat only because my time's a bit limited. But generally, if a person just attends and he doesn't really revise later, or he doesn't really attend lessons frequently, then what's going to happen? He's going to forget. Just like people who go conferences. And they go conferences, they hear, ask them the following day, what did you take? They've forgotten most of it. Ask them, and they might be able to mention a few fawaid. Ask them a couple of weeks later, nothing. They don't remember anything. Apart from maybe one thing or two things that maybe stood out. So not to be hasty when it comes to seeking knowledge, but to take everything in one go. A dars starts, memorize that text, learn that text, revise that text with the Sheikh, let him test you, and so on. Once you finish that, then you move on to the next book. Then you move on to the next book, and so on. Imam al-Zuhri also says, we only became scholars, or he said we only attained this knowledge bil hadith or hadithain, wal mas'alah wal mas'alatain, by learning one hadith or two hadith a day, or one mas'alah and two masail a day. And all he did was one hadith, two hadith, and so on. A fa'idah regarding Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Abu Hurairah, he accepted Islam in which year? Who knows? 7th, in the 7th year after Hijrah. He was and the Prophet passed away in the beginning of the 11th. So let's say he's 7th year, 8th year, 9th and 10th. 4 years he was with the Prophet, okay? Abu Bakr and Umar were with the Prophet from the beginning of his prophethood. So one question people ask is, how is it that Abu Hurairah has narrated more than 5,000 hadith? And Abu Bakr and Umar have narrated a lot less. Now there's a number of answers. One is that after Prophet passed away, Abu Bakr and Umar became busy with the Khilafah. And Abu Hurairah was free to narrate. Another is that Abu Bakr passed away 2 years later, and Umar 10 years after that. Abu Hurairah passed away about 50 Hijrah or 60 Hijrah, something like that. He was alive for a lot longer. And these are some of the answers. But one answer that could be given is, some of the muhaddithin have mentioned, even though we say he's narrated 5,000 plus hadith, a lot of them are repeated. And if you take away all of the different chains of narration and everything, his ahadith actually come down to 1,400. His ahadith come down to 1,400. Now, how many days are there in 4 years? How many, 1 year? 365. خلاص, say 350. Times it by 4. How much? 1400. 1400. What does that mean? One hadith a day. All he had to do was one hadith a day. And imagine if he did 2. Alright? So it's not something impossible. Abu Hurairah narrated the most hadith. Alright? One could argue all he did was one hadith a day. If you want to stick to the number 5,300 and whatever it may be, no problem. Then how many hadiths is memorized? 4 hadiths a day. Because 4 would mean 6,000, right? So 4 hadiths. Oh, 4 hadiths. What allowed him to narrate that many hadiths? He took a little bit at a time, solidified it, and he was consistent. These 2 things. He was consistent. And obviously the Prophet made dua for him as well. But that's all he did. At night he would stay up the night doing what? Just revising hadith. And so on. Okay. Just because of time, I'll just summarize this chapter. Yani, page 40, 41 and 42, the Shaykh is just talking about how the Quran, how long did it take the Quran to be revealed? 23 years. And the Quran wasn't taken in 1 day, or in 1 month, or in a short dora, or in a quick course. It was over the period of 23 years. It took time. Likewise, seeking knowledge takes a lot of time. And then on page 43, go to page 43. He says, at the bottom of page 43, and whoever exposes himself to looking at these big books, then he might harm his religion. And going beyond bounds in knowledge will most likely lead him to becoming lost. And from the wonderful statements of wisdom and the saying of Abdul Karim al-Rifa'i, one of the teachers of knowledge in Damascus of Sham in the previous generation, طعام الكبار سم الصغار. The food of the adults is poison to the children. Yani, the point the Shaykh is making is that one thing at a time, just staying consistent, a little bit, start with the smaller books and go higher and go bigger and bigger. Don't jump to the bigger book straight away. Then he gave this nice statement, طعام الكبار سم الصغار. If you had a little baby who's still drinking milk, for example, can you go get him a burger meal? You say, I'm going to treat this baby today. I'm going to take him to Burger King, McDonald's, or I'll get him a juice. Let him have some majus. Now, what's going to happen if he eats that? He's going to choke and he's going to die, right? Why? Because he's not at that level to be eating that food. He has to be eating that which is on his level, which is milk and then baby food and whatever the case may be. It's likewise in seeking knowledge. And you don't jump to the bigger books. That's going to overcome you, and that'll be too much. The smaller books is what you need, and slowly go higher and higher and higher. So this is the 8th principle. The 9th principle is having patience in knowledge, in acquiring and giving back. Yani, knowledge requires a lot of patience. Knowledge requires a lot of patience. It's not easy. Yani, like now, nearly every single day we have a dars. Saturday morning we have a dars. Sunday evening dars. Tuesday evening dars. Monday, Tuesday Sheikh dars. Wednesday we got dars. Thursday, alhamdulillah, Thursday we have off now. Friday khutbah and then the dora. Yani every day there's something going on. To attend daily, it's difficult. It requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of patience. That's anything in life. Look at some of the non-Muslims. Yani, those that they excel in the dunya, how did they relax? They'd wake up 4 a.m. in the morning, they would do this, they would go for a jog, what do we do? Complete opposite. If you do wake up Fajr, go back to sleep and so on. Myself included, right? Seeking knowledge requires a lot of patience. And there's a lot of obstacles that are going to come. Yani you want to do something and it doesn't work out. SubhanAllah, a few days ago, I had an appointment with Sheikh Mohammed Al-Tahiri. He gave me a time, I went. I went all the way to the Masjid, the Sheikh forgot, he didn't come. That happens. What do? I say, I'm not going to meet the Sheikh again? No, just wait for another appointment, then I'll go and benefit from the Sheikh. When I was reading my Quran and get ijazah from Sheikh Al-Qasim, and he's an Imam Masjid Nabi, he's busy. One day I sat well, firstly, when I went to him, there's another Sheikh who knew him. So he spoke to the Sheikh and said, Sheikh, there's a student from UK, he wants to recite Quran to you. The Sheikh agreed, alhamdulillah. And the Sheikh said, I'm busy, come back in 2 weeks. So now come back in 2 weeks. And now the Sheikh that spoke to him, he's no longer there. He came for Umrah, he went. So I went to the Sheikh, I said, Sheikh Fulan, he spoke to you, said that I can recite to you. And the Sheikh said, okay, I'm busy again, come back next week. And now I'm thinking, is this the normal thing where they say bukra, bukra, and nothing ever happens? But khalas, I said, left patience. And alhamdulillah, after that, the Sheikh said, Yalla, start reciting. But even then, it wasn't easy. There was one time where I went to the Sheikh Asr time. I sat with the Sheikh Asr till Maghrib. I didn't recite. And I used to recite Thuman, 2 pages to the Sheikh a day. I wasn't reciting just 2 pages a day. I didn't recite till Maghrib. I thought, khair, after Maghrib. Maghrib, I'm not reading. The adhan of Isha happens. I've still not read. The Sheikh turns to me and he says, sorry, I was busy today, read tomorrow. And so in the beginning it was difficult. But then what happened? After a while, the Sheikh saw that, alhamdulillah, I'm still attending, I've not left. After a while, I was the first student to recite, or second, depending on the student who used to come. Straight after Asr, 10-20 minutes after Asr, I'm finished, I'm free. Then what I used to do, I used to go attend another class. I used to go to a Mutun class, and I was actually able to do 3 classes, the Qira'at class as well, just between Asr and Maghrib. When did that reward come that I could recite straight away? After the patience. And this is I'm just mentioning this because it's more of a personal one, and it's more in our times. But if you look at the Salaf, they would travel for a month just to learn one hadith. They would travel for a month just to meet one person. They say, I'm looking for so and so, and they would say, subhanAllah, you just missed him. That's his janazah over there. Go pray his janazah. And then look at the Prophet ﷺ. His wife, uncle passed away in the same year. They stoned him and made him bleed. They exiled him. They tried to kill him. They poisoned him. They tried to do sorcery upon him. They broke his teeth in the Battle of Uhud. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. All of his children passed away in his lifetime, apart from one. Did the Prophet turn around and he say, I'm not doing this, it's too much? La. The Prophet had patience. Without that patience, Islam would not have reached us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted the Prophet to have that patience. Likewise, in seeking knowledge, it requires a lot of patience. And even when teaching, when giving back means when you're teaching. And it requires a lot of patience. You want to start at a certain time, students are coming late. You test the students on the previous lesson, they don't know. It requires a lot of patience. Don't worry, it's fine. But what you need to know right now is seeking knowledge requires a lot of patience. And then the Sheikh speaks about it just because of time, because we need to finish the book next week. You can read that in your own time, inshallah. Page 46, go to page 46. Anything I don't read in your own time. It should be straightforward, inshallah. Page 46, the Shaykh mentions a statement of Yahya ibn Abi Kathir where he says, لا يستطاع العلم براحة الجسم. You will not reach knowledge or attain knowledge with a rested body. Just by relaxing, sitting back, relaxing, chilling, you can't learn. You have to put in effort. You have to go, you have to travel, and so on. And what's funny is that some people you'll hear, I'll study, inshallah, I'm applying for Medina University, I'll study when I go to Medina. Okay. Right, there's a class taking place right now, 10 minutes away from you, 20 minutes away from you. They don't go, why? It's far. No, you're not going to learn. If you're not going to put in the effort here, how are you going to travel somewhere else and learn over there? And this statement of Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, you know what's profound about this? Is Imam Muslim, rahimahullah, he narrates this in Sahih Muslim. And he narrates this in the book of Salah under the chapter of Awqat al-Salawat, the timing of the Salawat. Now many of the Shurrah, those who came to explain Sahih Muslim, they come to this moment, this statement here, and a lot of them, they didn't know, and ashkala alayhim, they found it problematic, that what has this statement got to do with the timings of the Salah? You can't attain knowledge with the rest of the body. Why has Imam Muslim brought this narration over here? And if one was to say, because praying on time is difficult. Nah, maybe, But there's so many other things which are more difficult. Hajj is more, it would be more appropriate to pray for Hajj. Hajj is a lot more difficult, especially back in the day when they had to travel on feet and not on trains and planes. Imam Nawawi in his explanation, he mentions that Qadi Iyad mentions the reason why. If you look at Sahih Muslim, we mentioned last time, one of the differences between Bukhari and Muslim is Bukhari, he just mentions one narration and he moves on. In that chapter, one narration moves on. Imam Muslim would mention a few narrations of the same hadith, few different chains of narration. Normally it's about two or three. But in this case, Imam Muslim mentions approximately 13 different narrations of the same hadith. Same hadith, 13 different ways of the hadith. So they come to explain and they say, it is as though Imam Muslim is saying to you that you see all these different narrations that you've read in a minute. It took me months of traveling and going here and going there and testing and revising and so on, just for me to attain this knowledge. So don't think that knowledge that I've attained is just because you read it in a minute, doesn't mean that you're going to attain this knowledge in a minute. It requires a lot of effort. For you to truly have knowledge, it requires a lot of time and effort. Of the chapter, Babu Awqat al-Salawat. So he mentions the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr regarding the timings of Salah. And after mentioning about 13 different narrations, he mentioned Yahya ibn Abi Kathir says this. It's similar to what Imam Malik said. Imam Malik, he said, when he taught Muwatta to his students, he said, كتاب ألفته في 40 سنة أخذتموه في 40 يوما قل ما تتفقهون فيه. A book which I have gathered in 40 years. It took me 40 years to compile this book. And you've studied it in 40 days. Very little do you truly understand this book. Meaning, don't think you've studied this book, you understand it like me, it took me 40 years to compile it. It's not as simple as just I just put the hadith together and you can just study it like that. La. That true knowledge, it won't come to you in 40 days. It requires a lot more time. Now, we'll take one last principle, inshallah, which is number 10, which is sticking to the manners of knowledge. And this is in here, the author, rahimahullah, he talks about the importance of learning the mannerisms, the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. And we talked about the importance of them previously. And that a person, if you go later, page 49, he mentioned a statement of Yusuf ibn al-Hussein. What does Yusuf ibn al-Hussein say? بِالْأَدَبِ تُفْهَمُ الْعِلْمِ. Or some have said, بِالْأَدَبِ تَفْهَمُ الْعِلْمِ. That through etiquettes will you understand knowledge. And it's all these etiquettes, and we mentioned the 6 types of etiquettes. Right? Who remembers the 6 types? Go on.
About these books?
The 6 rights of a student of knowledge, or the 6.
The rights of student himself.
So there's etiquettes for the person himself, and you have to act upon the knowledge and so on.
The rights of the teacher.
The rights of the teacher.
The rights of the classmate.
Of the classmates, no.
Rights of the place.
The place where you are studying.
Rights of the books.
The books.
And the rights
of the knowledge itself. Rights of the knowledge itself. All of these come under etiquettes. And sometimes people think etiquette is only with the teacher, right? Speak to a teacher in a certain way and so on, which is one of the greatest form of etiquette, without a doubt. But everything else also comes under the etiquette and the mannerisms of how to seek knowledge. And the Shaykh here mentions a number of statements of the Salaf. Ibn Sirin at the bottom of page 49, كانوا يتعلمون الهدي كما يتعلمون العلم. That they, the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, used to learn good manners just as they would learn knowledge. Malik ibn Anas, Imam Malik would say to a youth on the next page, يا ابن أخي تعلم الأدب قبل أن تتعلم العلم. Learn etiquettes before you learn knowledge. Makhlad ibn al-Hussein, he says, نحن إلى كثير من الأدب أحوج منا إلى كثير من العلم. We are more in need of good manners than we are in need of an increase in knowledge. And then later on the Shaykh, he continues to mention a few more narrations and stories of how the Salaf, if they saw students not having knowledge, not having etiquettes, they would rebuke them and they would turn away and they wouldn't teach them until they had those etiquettes. So, inshallah, I think we'll stop here, bi'idhnillah. Next week, inshallah, we will finish the book. I know the lessons are a bit longer than normal. That's only because we need to finish the book in 3 lessons. Yani 3 lessons is quite a bit, quite less. Initially, what did I say to you? 5 lessons? Initially. I said 4 maybe. I said 4, خلاص. يعني, but we'll try to take it in 3 lessons. Obviously, we only have next Saturday. So next week, inshallah, we'll try to finish the book. Do try to revise and learn these etiquettes.
The last part also, those who have attended today.
Whoever's attended today, inshallah, they'll send you the remainder of the PDF. You can print it out, inshallah. Please do not send that PDF to anybody else. And the brother, may Allah reward him, who translated this, is one of my friends. He's a student at Medina University, master student. He translated this book. And this book is sold, yeah. This book which is sold. But he's given me the PDF, alhamdulillah. And because we're in Kuwait and for us to get the book and will be difficult and so on, and I needed it quite urgently, alhamdulillah, he gave permission for us to use the PDF. And to give the PDF to you, but with the condition that you don't send it to anybody else. You don't send it to anybody else, inshallah. طيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. وإياكم.